Want a podcast? Kia ora, I'm Maxene, podcast producer, audio nerd, and founder of Maxene London Creative. Let's explore what it takes to start and maintain a successful podcast. I'll chat with industry experts, podcast hosts, and fellow audio nerds on everything about the wonderful world of podcasting. We'll talk techniques, trends, and top tips to get you started on your podcast journey. Whether you're a podcast newbie or you've been here a while, welcome. Want a podcast? Today we are chatting about something that every podcaster, current or aspiring, needs to know. The current state of podcasting, what's trending, what's working, and how to cut through the noise in 2025 and beyond. If you're just tossing an idea around or already publishing episodes, this one is jam-packed with insights, data, and strategy. So grab your headphones, we're going deep. Let's start with the big picture. What's trending in podcasting right now? Podcasting isn't slowing down. That's what the data is showing. In fact, it is evolving faster than ever. Globally, we have seen a huge uptick in listening with weekday binge sessions, more video podcasting, and platforms like Spotify rapidly growing their share. Now, in New Zealand alone, there are over 800 local podcasts, up from near zero just a decade ago. That's according to the AUT Podcast Summit report in 2024, so the numbers are growing all the time. We know that this number will be bigger than that now. We have got indie creators, we've got media giants like RNZ and NZME, and we've got a mix of like true crime, current affairs, and lifestyle content making it into the top charts. And the format that stays dominant, you guessed it, it's interviews. Around 41% of Kiwi podcasts are interview style, and it's not just us. In the US, it is a hugely popular format as well. That combo of a charismatic host and genuine conversation, it works. Listeners want connection, and they want a familiar voice each week that builds trust, something that we will come back to. So, what kind of content are people flocking to? Globally, comedy and education are fast-growing genres. People want to laugh and they want to learn. True crime is also a binge-worthy beast, and science and history content is on the rise too. In New Zealand, it's a bit of a blend, from hard news to quirky investigations. The RNZ series Kelly Tarleton's Final Treasure Hunt is a great example. It mixes science and mystery and great storytelling. But it is more than just genre. It's how a show is hosted that makes it stick. So the best sort of hosts are authentic, they're prepared, they're genuinely curious. They're not just asking questions, they're creating connection. If you're thinking about starting an interview-style podcast, that's your blueprint. Be prepared, but stay present. Let the guest shine, but don't lose your voice. Let's talk about growing your podcast and what is working now. Because good content is only half the story, right? Top podcasters use a range of tactics like transcripts and blog posts to boost SEO, cross-promotion with other shows in their niches, email newsletters to stay connected with listeners, and video snippets on social media. And yes, giveaways and live events are working as well. But video is a biggie, especially for discovery. Recording in a tool like Riverside lets you repurpose clips on Instagram and YouTube, and that visual layer makes it easier to connect with new listeners who haven't hit play yet. Now, according to the Spring 2025 podcast download report from Cumulus Media and Signal Hill Insights, 39% of weekly podcast listeners are tuning in via YouTube. That's 39%. And in terms of podcast discovery, 44% of new podcast audiences started listening on YouTube. That is huge. So if you're only doing audio right now, no stress. But start thinking about how you can maybe bring in a visual component later, because it is a growth accelerator. All right, we have talked trends, formats, and what makes listeners stick around. Now let's dig into what it actually takes to launch and grow a successful podcast in today's landscape. First up, you need to set your foundation. This is what you need to launch strong. Launching a podcast isn't just about hitting record and uploading to Spotify, although yes, that is part of it. But if you want to launch something successful, something that lands and lasts and actually works for your audience and your business, if that's part of your goal, then you need to start with a solid foundation. I'm breaking this down into 5 core pieces. We've got your concept, your brand, your gear, your space, and your hosting platform. Nail these and everything else becomes a whole lot easier. So first, let's dive into defining your concept and your audience. Before you buy a microphone or design your artwork, you need to get super clear on your podcast purpose. Ask yourself this: what am I talking about? Who am I speaking to? And why does it matter? Your concept should be specific but not restrictive. Think about a niche within a niche. Instead of just a podcast about business, maybe it's a podcast about how solo female founders balance creativity and cash flow. Instead of health and wellness, maybe it's mental health conversations for creative people in their 30s. Here's a quick example. Let's say you want to launch a podcast about motherhood. That is a huge category. But if your focus is specifically on navigating motherhood as a first-time parent in your 40s, that is a whole lot more unique, and it speaks directly to someone scrolling through endless shows thinking, I want something that feels like me. The clearer your concept is, the more likely your ideal listener will find you and stick with your show. And don't worry about being too niche and ruling people out, because even if that target audience for that motherhood podcast is first-time parents in their 40s, you can still listen to it if you're in your 30s or your 20s. It's just good to be super clear so that you can really target and engage with your specific community. Don't worry, it will come. Next up, let's dig into branding, visual and audio identity. So this includes the name, the visual look, and the sound of your show. Your podcast name should be easy to say, easy to spell, and not already taken. So always do a quick Spotify and Apple Podcast search. It should also give a sense of what your show is about. Think about Friends That Invest, Diary of a CEO, Good Hang. Catchy, clear, and on brand. Now for visuals, stick to bold colors with contrast so that it stands out on podcast apps, legible fonts, especially when shrunken down to a tiny little square, and it needs to be 3000 by 3000 pixels because that is Apple's standard for artwork. Also, don't forget about audio branding. So this includes things like your intro and outro music, maybe you've got transitional stingers or sound effects, and it also includes your voice tone. So are you calm and reflective, cheeky and upbeat? You know, whatever your vibe is, it needs to stay consistent across all of your episodes. If you're unsure, scroll through your favorite podcasts and note down what works. Your goal isn't to copy, it's just to spark inspiration for something that feels like you. Third, let's talk about gear, what you actually need. Now, I know that the gear overwhelm is real, but here's the truth. You don't need a full studio to start a great podcast. Here's the basic setup. First, you need a microphone. USB microphones are easy because they're accessible. You can plug them straight into your laptop. There are quite a few good options out there like the Rode PodMic or Samsung Q2U. These are affordable and sound great. If you're ready to invest in more, you could go for an XLR mic. That is not a USB, but those big round ones that connect into like amplifiers or interfaces. The Shure SM7B is a great XLR mic if you're ready to step up into that level. Now with your microphone, there are 2 different types of microphones. There are dynamic microphones and condenser microphones. All of those microphones that I've just mentioned are dynamic, and I believe that dynamic microphones are the best for most home podcasters. Condenser microphones are what you'll find in most podcast studios or radio studios because they do give a really rich sound voice to you. but they are also highly sensitive, so they're more likely to pick up lots of background noise and echo. Dynamic microphones record a narrower frequency, so they're less likely to pick up background noise. And this just means that your voice will sound clearer and more crisp if you're recording in a noisy environment, like if you're at home or in an office space. Dynamic microphones tend to be the best way to go. Next, you need a pop filter or foam cover. This is to soften harsh plosive sounds or that was an example. I'm sorry. I know it's horrible for your ears. You want to avoid that. So a lot of microphones, like the Rode Pod mic, for example, comes with an internal pop filter, but it's also important to get like a little covering for on your microphone if your microphone doesn't have this, because no one wants to be listening to that sounds. Next, you need headphones. Closed back ones are the best so that you can hear your own audio really clearly but avoid echo when you're interviewing. A good set of headphones is crucial because it means you can hear exactly what's going on. Is there a dog barking down the street? Is your microphone picking that up? Yes or no? Your headphones will tell you. Your headphones will let you know exactly what is being recorded. Are you too loud? Are you too quiet? Are you distorted? Are you getting sounds? Your headphones will let you know exactly what's being recorded, so it's really important to wear them and monitor while you're going. Next, you need a laptop. Any modern computer will do, as long as you've got space for audio files and editing software. I personally like Apple because I like editing in GarageBand, which is free on a Mac, but anything that is going to be fast enough and have enough storage will be all good. And if you were doing remote interviews, you could consider a platform like Riverside FM, Squadcast, or Zencaster, because they record locally on each device and then upload the files at the end so that both sides of the conversation are high quality, even if the internet lags. If you go with something like Zoom or Microsoft Teams to record your conversation, you are going to be relying on a good internet connection. And so if the internet cuts out or if there's any lag or disruption caused by the internet, you're going to be in a bit of a pickle. Don't let tech hold you back. Start small and upgrade later. Next, let's talk about your recording space. Where you record matters, and this goes hand in hand with your microphone, because how your recording space is set up will determine what sort of microphone you can get. For example, if you've got a better set up home environment and it's quite soundproofed, you've got lots of soft furnishings in the room, maybe you can get a condenser microphone and it will sound good. No amount of gear can save you from a bad recording space. The best microphone in the world will still pick up echo if you're recording in a tiled kitchen or open plan living room. Here's what works. A small, soft furnished room, blankets or duvets to hang on the walls, wardrobes full of clothes. Yes, people do record in their wardrobes, and I actually have a friend who would remotely record her radio show inside her tiny little wardrobe. And rugs and cushions to absorb sounds. Sounds can bounce off hard surfaces and cause echoes, and so if you've got lots of soft furnishings, these can absorb the sound and reduce that echo. Now, avoid big rooms, hard walls, anything with noisy backgrounds like appliances, traffic, barking dogs, you name it. Even turning off your heater, dryer, or aircon while you record can make a huge difference. And if you are consistent with your space, your sound will become recognizable and your audience will appreciate that. Next, let's talk about your hosting platform. This is where your show lives. Your hosting platform stores your audio files and creates an RSS feed. This is a magic little link that sends your episodes out to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the other major players. Popular hosting platforms include Acast. This is what I use. It's great for monetization, dynamic ads, analytics. There's Buzzsprout, which is super beginner friendly and excellent customer support. There's Lisbon, which is reliable and industry standard, but it's a little bit less modern in its user interface. There's also Anchor, which is now called Spotify for podcasters. This is free and simple to use. It's great if you're starting out, especially if you're focusing on Spotify as your main platform. Most platforms offer analytics so that you can see your plays per episode, your listener location, your listener trends. Most platforms also offer scheduling so that you can upload in advance and set a release time. And also most of them will offer monetization options. Some offer dynamic ads or subscriptions, so you need to look into it and see what's important to you and what suits your goals best. Once you've picked a host, you'll submit your show to directories like Apple Podcasts and Spotify so that people can find you. Most hosts walk you through this step by step, and it is pretty user-friendly and pretty easy to navigate. So that's your foundation: concept, brand, gear, space, and platform. It might seem like a lot at first, but when you break it down, each step is super doable, and once it's done, you're sorted and you're ready to go. So you don't have to think about it again unless you're upgrading. Oh, and choose your release schedule before you launch. Weekly is a great rhythm if you can stick to it. Otherwise, fortnightly works too. What's more important is being consistent with your release. Once your audience knows what to expect, they are going to expect that from you every week, every fortnight, monthly, whatever it is. So don't worry too much about your frequency, just worry more about consistency. Okay, let's talk about format now. A lot of new podcasters do tend to overthink this part, and the truth is clarity and consistency are what matters the most. Here is a simple format that works really well for interview-style podcasts. First, do a short intro. Include your music, your show name, and a quick teaser or welcome. Second, do a guest introduction, a short bio to give your audience context. I think it's important to introduce your guest. There are a lot of podcasters who will say, "Now, welcome to the show. Can you introduce yourself?" And that can work, but I think it's more polite and it's a better best practice to introduce them yourself because they are coming onto your show and this is your audience. Next, we're going to have the main conversation, the interview. This should be guided but flexible, so start with some easy warm-up questions and then go deeper as you go, but don't forget to just take the lead of your guest and go where the conversation naturally flows. Then we'd have an outro, a recap of some key takeaways, promote what's next, include a call to action like follow the show or sign up to your newsletter, and don't forget to keep your tone conversational, warm and natural. Even if you're discussing big topics, your voice and your presence is what is going to keep people listening. Okay, so you've got your podcast, you've got your content, you've hit record. Now it's time for marketing. This is the part that people often dread, but honestly, it can be fun if you let yourself be creative. Here's what's working right now. SEO, that means search engine optimization. Podcast platforms are a search engine, so you need to make sure that your show notes and your episode titles are aligned with SEO practices, and you can even write full blog posts based on each episodes. Google can't hear your audio, but it can read your transcripts and it can read your blog posts. If you embed your episode, either the YouTube link or the Spotify embed or your RSS feed straight into the bottom, they can read your blog and then listen to the episode. Social media clips. Recording in video-friendly platforms like Riverside and repurposing your best bits for Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. This acts like the shop window. It's the front door. It's what hooks people in and gets them to listen to your podcast. Emailing your audience. A short, engaging newsletter is gold. You can include behind-the-scenes content, links to show episodes, and even listener shout-outs. Cross-promotion. Team up with other podcasters, swap shout-outs, or guest on each other's shows. This builds your audience fast because you're tapping into someone else's existing audience. Launch trailers and teasers. These are short, punchy previews that get attention, especially when shared in the lead up to your first few episodes. And remember, marketing doesn't have to feel pushy. If you genuinely believe that your content helps or inspires people, sharing it is just letting them know it exists. Let's talk now about staying consistent without burning out. Here's a hard truth. Most podcasts fade out after just a few episodes. Why? Burnout, lack of planning, and unrealistic expectation. So here's how to avoid that. Batch your episodes. Record 2 to 4 at a time so that you're not stuck scrambling every week. Create templates for show notes, emails, and social posts to streamline your workflow and make it so much easier. Keep your why visible. Whether you're building a business, growing a community, or sharing your story, remembering your purpose helps you push through when motivation dips. Also, you are allowed to take breaks. Just tell your audience and return when you're ready. A well-rested podcaster is a better podcaster. So, whether you are about to launch or are deep into your podcasting journey, here is the main takeaway. Great podcasts aren't just made, they're grown. Through clarity, consistency, and connection, through smart strategy and staying true to your voice. If you are ready to take the next step and put this into practice, I have just released the Launch Your Podcast Starter Kit, which you can purchase now at maxineLondonCreative.co.nz. It is a super practical workbook packed with templates, checklists, and guided exercises to take you from podcast idea to pressing publish with confidence. No tech overwhelm, no fluff, just the exact steps you need to get your voice out there. You can grab your copy now. The link is in the show notes. It's at MaxineLondonCreative.co.nz. And if you've been waiting for a sign to start your podcast, this is it. Make sure you stay tuned to this podcast for more on how to build, grow, and maintain a successful podcast. Hit follow wherever you're listening, and if this episode gave you a little light bulb moment, I'd love it if you could share it with someone else who is dreaming of starting their own show. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to Want a Podcast. If you got something out of this episode, give it some love. Subscribe, follow, share it with your friends, or leave a review. It all helps to get this podcast into the ears of those who need it. If you're keen to connect, check out Want a Podcast or Maxene London Creative on Instagram, or head to MaxineLondonCreative.co.nz. Check out the show notes for links. Thanks again for being part of my community. See you next time.